Testing 1, 2, 3. Testing 1, 2. Give this to right. So yours. Right. It's on. Yeah, it's on. Good, good. Kirk only, don't you? Yes. How are you doing? Yes. Person. So we're gonna get started in about 1 minute. At 6:10, we've given them a 10-minute grace and then we're gonna go. Randy, do you have the clicker? I'm sorry, do you have a clicker?
No, Carolyn's got it. Okay, I have one, but she had one.
Good evening, everyone. We can have everyone take their seats. We're gonna get started. Thank you all for coming tonight. Nice of you to take time out from your schedule to come out for this community meeting. My name is Fred Cusero. I'm the Community Recreation Director for the city. Some of you, if you were either on Zoom or in person when we did this Phillips Park community meeting prior, I was here as well. So if you're back, thank you for returning. Just want to give you a quick introduction of what we're doing. We did have a presentation that we're going to show to the community about the park, and the format will be, we'll have the presentation. At the end of the presentation, you will all have an opportunity to ask questions. We also have our audience on Zoom. And for those of you that are listening on Zoom, in the chat box, you can put your questions and then we'll read them as part of that question and answer session. So if I can have the presentation up. Thank you. Oh, all right. Okay, so before we get started here, I wanted to get to this meeting information. As I said, it's an in-person hybrid meeting. We're going to record it. Once we record it, it'll serve as the meeting minutes, and we're going to share it on our city's webpage for park projects, which is Parks Projects. You see it on the bottom there, parksprojects@coralgables.com. We are going to open the input. It's not only going to be the questions and answers that we get from here. We're going to have an entire input period where those people can come. If they weren't able to make it to the meeting, they can watch the presentation, the video. They can look at the concept plan. I mean, the design that we're going to show today, and they'll be able to provide us all the input. We'll take all that input through June 7th, and then we'll start to compile it. And that's how we'll look at final design in terms of consensus. Before we move forward on the meeting, I do want to introduce some of our city staff that's here. We do have Carolina Vester, who's our Deputy Director of Community Recreation. She works in my department. Sarah Espino, who is monitoring the Zoom, and she also works in our department. We do have from the Public Works Capital Improvements team, who's working with us on this project, is Jose Oliveros and Jean Solari. We have our Green Space Management Director, who handles all of our trees and plant selection, Dina Bell. She's back there. And we also have, as a guest, and we're so happy to have him, one of our city commissioners, Kirk Menendez, is in the back row. So he's there. Maybe I shouldn't have said that, because then I publicize him. You can't attack him, please. So We also have, I know, we have a couple of representatives from the school that are back there. Thank you, welcome. And we do have our staff in the back that is operating the Adult Activity Center. So at the end of the meeting, for those of you that parked in the garage, you can get a validation ticket over at the desk right here in front of the window. And they'll be able to give you that ticket so you can get out of parking on, not have to pay. So let's get going with the meeting. Now that we've got all that information out of there. In addition to all that input, pay attention to that email for additional comments that you can submit via email. Okay, so here's a quick history of where we are with this particular park. In 2006, the city worked with Miami-Dade County Schools to look at a compact where we looked at how we would interact with the school and the city. It allowed for the new established middle school, which it was became a K-8 to use Phillips Park. So we allowed use. It's a joint use. The city does it at no cost to the school board, and we have allowed them to use it, and we have a good relationship. We're in communication with the physical education instructor who's here, and we also look at their after-school activities as well. Their flag football things, we set that up and they use it. Previously, the American Educational Center was home to the Ace Academy School. The use agreement is done here at the end of this school year. So we'll be talking with the school, and I think our liaisons with our city management team are working with the school board to look at the next agreement period for them to use the school. This clicker has a mind of its own. All right, here we go. So part of this program, and we described this at our last meeting, is we received a grant from this program. And what that does, it's from the state, the Florida Recreation Development Assistance Program, which is the FERDAP program. And it's a $200,000 grant. It was awarded to us. We have to match that 200,000. You'll see from this design, we're going to match that and many, many, many times over. And but what's really important about the grant and why we mention it is because look at the completion deadline. We do need to be done in the next couple of years. So this is a big project. We have to go through, we have to finish this design portion. We have to go through all the bids, all the drawings, all the permits, and we have to go through construction and we have to get here. So that is our deadline. That's our bottom line. We can't pass that or we lose that money, which we don't want to do. Next slide, please. So here's a map view of the site and an aerial view of the site. If you're here in this meeting, I'm sure you know where it is, but it's right off Douglas. As you can tell, you have the surrounding streets there. It's a 3-acre park. It is probably one of our biggest. There's one other park other than the youth center that is as large as this park. And it is, if not the busiest, other than the youth center, it is either one or two in terms of amount of use that it gets in the city. It's a very big, viable place for parks and recreation. As you know, if you live in the community, there's a lot of dense housing there, a lot of multi-unit homes, and there's a lot of amenities in that park that people living in that area, this is the only place they can have those amenities. So we think it's a very important park. It's why we paid so much attention to it. It's why we've made sure that we try to program it with as many things as the community needs. Next slide, please. Here's an aerial view. You could tell what we have there, which currently there's a bathroom, which is an exterior bathroom with a little storage. There's a small playground. There's a larger field area. And then there's the courts, the 2 tennis courts, and you have a basketball court. So that's what we have there right now. Next slide. Here's a north view and a south view just from the field, as you can see. what we have there currently. Next slide. And the same on the east and the west. So here's an overhead of existing conditions, as we talked about. So you can kind of get more of a set of a drawing. That's what you could see. And that's the footprint that we're working with. Next slide. So here are the proposed enhancements. We are looking at an expansion or replacement of the current building. So the building that we have there just has exterior bathrooms. Based on the use and need of what we have in that park, we think we need more of an interior restroom space. We want to put a classroom in there as well, so we can do programming, and that will lead to having more control of the space. We'll have a space for staff, and we'll be able to do that. In this design, there'll be 2 new pickleball courts. There's going to be a splash pad playground. The field will be artificial turf. We're going to do a fitness and exercise area. We're going to have a lightning prediction system, and we're looking at having a CCTV surveillance camera system as well. Next slide. We're not done. So that's slide 1 of our proposed improvements. We also want to do a more expanded playground, and you'll see it in a second. Something that is befitting the use that playground gets. The one that we have there is very small right now. We're looking at the removal of 1 tennis court and relocation of the basketball court to provide a proper fenced-in court for the basketball. We're looking at resurfacing and new hardscapes and equipment for both tennis and basketball courts, wider multi-use walkways with new surfacing, and then, of course, landscaping and new perimeter fencing, park furnishings, and shade structure designs for both the splash pad and play areas so you don't have the sun exposure. We can get the next slide. All right, so at this point, I am going to turn it over to our design team from Bermeo, Agimel, and Randy Hollingsworth will be able to describe what is proposed.
Thank you, Fred. This is a really exciting project. It's actually fairly small, but an intense use of a site for a recreation facility. So for us, that's really exciting. It's not just open fields. It's a very intense, active recreation area. Can we get the slide? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm going to take you for a walk around the park so you can understand all the different components. Starting in the lower left, that is the northwest corner of the park. North is to your left, south is to your right, and then west is down. So in the lower left corner, which is kind of the primary park entry right now, or it looks like the primary park entry, what we've done is we're going to redesign that entry. You're going to come into the park, and where the playground is now going to be a splash pad for children. It's going to be sort of a dual age splash pad. We'll have on the left side that bigger circle. You're going to have an area for older children to play, and you're going to see some images after we talk about the other parts of the project. So you're going to see some images of what that looks like. And on the right side, which has a shade structure over it, that's for very small children and toddlers to play in the water feature. And you'll walk around that. There'll be seating around it. There'll be an area for adults to watch the kids play. It's going to be a really nice focal point as the entry feature to the park. You walk around that, and if you turn to the right, you'll walk down between the new field on the upper side, which is the synthetic sports field. There'll be a fence around it to keep the balls and everything in the sports field area. And then you'll have the tennis court and the relocated basketball court here redone. And you'll walk down southward to the south entry, which is this entry, which is existing right here. You come in off the street, this location, which a lot of people use. You come along the back or the south side of the park. We're trying to maintain all the trees we can. I think we only lose 1 or 2, but the trees along there are beautiful. And that's the area at the end of the athletic field that we have the 2 new pickleball courts that are in an east-west orientation. The walkway then continues to the corner here. And here we have a sport club area, which is, you'll see pictures of it. It's hard to explain. It's an open area where you can go and do sort of exercise all in a group. It's not sort of individual stations. It's a really interesting concept and very popular. You then continue down the sort of the backside of the park with a new walkway that meanders amongst the trees. Coming down here to the northeast corner, this is the other entry, which is existing. And this is where we've placed the playground now. It's a substantially larger playground with shade structures on the south side so that when you're in the playground, you're going to be mostly shaded. There's areas because when you see the structure, we've put quite a structure in this. This is an exciting playground compared to what we have now. The walkway will continue. You're still inside the park. You'll come down here, and this is where the new building is. The existing building is about here. This is the picnic shelter, and this is an expanded building that Fernando from our office will show you a floor plan and what that building will look like, sort of the new community restroom facility. You continue along here, and this is the, I said before, the picnic shelter, which is staying there. We're keeping that intact. And here you can enter or, go. So there's a walking path around the park now. It'll be a really beautiful amenity when it's all finished. And with that, I will turn it, I think there's a blow up here of the actual park. You can see here a little bit clearer. This is the splash pad, which is an area that is wet here, but the water goes away. There's no standing water virtually in that area. So you don't need a lifeguard. You don't have to worry about your children because the water goes away almost immediately. And then this is the rest of the park that you saw. And I'll show you some imagery of what the splash pad, the playground, and the sports court area looks like. And with that, I'll turn it over to Fernando. Yep.
I just hi, nice to see a lot of faces today. I just went back just to kind of like read it and on the fact of the building being right here. And the existing canopy that it is right now currently in place in there, and the intention of us is kind of like to keep the canopy and build from the existing footprint of the restrooms, build up from that. Knowing where the location is right now, now we jumped into the actual building. So this is just a blow up of what you saw on the slide before, which is basically just a rectangular shape footprint of the building, a little over 2,200,000 square feet gross. And what I was talking to you about is like the actual location of the restrooms. The idea is to keep them right where they are, kind of like allowing us to use some of the infrastructure that is existing right there and build from there the rest of the new building that is now going to complement the entire park and also the new facilities and new spaces that they want inside. Just to kind of like give you a walkthrough. Inside the actual new building proposed, we have so if you're coming through the northwest entrance that Randy was just talking about with the splash pad, and you go this direction, you're gonna come to kind of like what we have a focal zone in our building, which is this corner. And this corner is where the actual main entrance happens. So where you see these two sets of double doors, it's actually to allow people to go inside the main lobby area, which is going to be now an open lobby area, which is going to have the reception desk. It's going to have some furniture for people to wait inside with AC. Obviously, there's a TV to show images and a new agenda or stuff for the park happening, and then an office for staff that is serving the park. This is all. What is good about this is the transparency of it. This is always going to be open to the park. It has a lot of glass in here, and some windows that are going to allow natural light all the time to all the spaces happening on the front of house. Right when you're in, you can come into the multipurpose area, which is just graphically right now showing a layout of kind of like a classroom setup. But the idea of this, and that's why it's called multipurpose, is to function for any type of activities that the community want to have inside this room, but also having all the technology and everything and all the commodities already hit there for them to have that event. Even a kitchenette is added to it, so it kind of like complements that. And then from that is what they presented before. Now we have an AC kind of like more intimate indoor restroom area, which is now better for the use of the users. And then all the service areas of the building, as the electrical room, which is now going to house not only electrical needs for the building, but it's also going to house some electrical needs for the park itself. And storage areas for equipment, either for use internally on the building or for storage equipment on the park. And then on this slide, and I'm going to show you exactly based on the footprint that you saw right now, what this is showing basically, this is the long facade of that footprint that we just showed. And this is actually the main entrance. So as you see in here, there's kind of like a more elaborate kind of like architectural element, and that kind of like was born on up to this element all the way to this side. One of the things and the key elements that we wanted to bring and kind of like keep is knowing that we're going to have the canopy, and we actually want to keep that canopy existing in there. We want to like to keep and bring some of that language, which is not only obviously the Coral Gables language, but it's the language that we have right adjacent to it. Bring it and kind of like make a nice gesture that kind of like not only complements the park, but also kind of like talks about some proportionally elements that give transparency to the main lobby, which you can see in here and here, both entrances. This is looking from the field to the building, and this is looking from the park, from one of the kids' park to the building. So this again talks about the main entrance element, a lot of light, a lot of windows, and some of those ornamental elements that we have kind of like on the roof, as you see here, with some decoration, the hip roof, and some linear lighting elements are going to just show and complement the building during nighttime too, or at least during sunset. This is just a material board, so you kind of like see also the intention on colors and the intention on texture. It talks about again bringing the coral stone, bringing the texture stucco and the roofing elements from the adjacent canopy, bring them over and adding the modern kind of like elements of the glass and the aluminum to kind of like bring that up and kind of like wrap it up in a nice modern but still Mediterranean historic way. And in this one, we unfortunately don't have right now internal renderings to talk about that, but this actually we have studied already some material elements for the inside, which just brings us back to kind of like warm elements. So just to give kind of like give you like a big idea of what we're thinking about, it's just warm elements that are gonna make you feel kind of like a home when you walk inside the room and inside the actual building. Now we go back to the playground.
Thank you, Fernando. We have some images here now of the playground and the splash pad. And to give you sort of an orientation, background was added as not exactly accurate. This is on the north side of the sports field, looking from the north side of the playground southward. So you're seeing there's this sort of tall tower that city wanted something very dramatic and great for the kids to get up high and be able to look out over the park, and something as a real statement as you came into the park from the north east corner. And this is the walkway is along here, and this is the building right to the right of this playground. You have the swings here, two different types of swings, the tower with different slide options for the kids and climbing structures, and then the little toddler area over here with like a little cabin and some things for small children. So it's a really interesting playground. It'll all be on a synthetic turf surface. And also these are all the, you saw on the plan, all the shade structures that provide shade on the south side, which is the far side of this image. Oh, I'm sorry. These are some other images. The top left one is a view looking east of you standing on the west side. This is a view looking north. This is looking as if you're in the actual over top of the existing sport field, looking north into the playground. You can see all the shade structures here. This is a view looking south again, which is very similar to the first view that you can see as you walk along the pathway on the north side. And then this is sort of an axiometric looking down that you can see all of the shade structures, the walkways here, the sports field is here. So it's right up against the sports field, but we're putting a 10-foot fence on the sports field so that people playing in the playground won't have balls landing in the playground. We're going to take measures to make sure on such a tight site, we have to work with everything very close together. This is the splash pad. And again, the context is a little off. This is the splash pad as if you were coming into the park from the left. This is what you would come to at the corner. It's sort of a kidney shape. This is the large, older kids area. These have water cannons that shoot cannons. You can turn them and they can shoot other water sprays at other kids playing in the park. This is the area for the very young toddlers. It doesn't show here, but there will be a curving bench system around the entire outside for adults to sit at. Then there's also, this is where there's a shade structure over this end of the playground, which is the southern end, and will give lots of shade, especially for the parents sitting there watching their children play. There's no fence on this. The fence will be at the property line, so it's very open to the park. It'll feel very open. And the same thing with the playground, because they're all inside of a fenced park, we didn't have to put more fences. There is a fence around the sports field, which on this plan is full of trees, but it's right here that the sports field is there. The building and picnic shelter are over here. These are some other views. This is a very similar view to the first one. This is looking from the north southward. These are some tall sort of architectural sculptural elements that have water coming down from them. You have the jets coming from the ground. You have the water cannons. The nice thing about this fountain is it's going to be activated by the kids too. It won't be running all the time. The water shoots out from the jets when the child comes up and pumps the button, and then it goes on for a certain amount of time and then stops. So they activate the water feature themselves. Down here in the lower left, this is sort of standing in the middle of the fountain, looking at the older children area. You're looking north here. And then this is at the south end, looking up through the fountain. And there'll be seating all around the edges. This corner here will have a shower for the children to go to before they go in the splash pad. And then over here, you enter the rest of the park. This is that square sports club area I said on the southwest corner of the site. Southeast corner, sorry. This is sort of tucked in the very far corner. This is equipment, but it's not the type of equipment where there's machines. This is all body weight, exercising, sit-ups, pull-ups, all that kind of thing, done in kind of a group atmosphere. They're very, become very social because it's a place you go and you can talk to people and you can do your exercise. And so they're really, it's a neat opportunity to create something different in the park for other age group and other people using the park. As Fred explained, the courts will be redone. We have the tennis court. We have south of that is the new basketball court. And then of course we have the 2 pickleball courts as well that will have fencing around them to keep the balls inside the court areas. The sports field will be synthetic turf and which be redone because we know there's a lot of flooding problems on the field. So that will all be resolved with new drainage, new system, and much better, more usable field. The problem now is the grass wears out, it gets wet, it deteriorates. This will now be a field that's used much more frequently without deteriorating like the natural grass does, and trying to keep the grass growing. We're looking at putting a fence around it because that will fence in the sports field inside the park. And with that, I believe, well, I think you guys are presenting this. Caroline is shaking her head yes. So
So one of the things that we're talking about also with the playground is, and I got a lot of feedback from parents over the last few years, and I kept telling them it's coming, it's coming, it's coming, is, the engineered wood fiber that we have there. That was universally not loved by the parents that use the playground there. They wanted a more unitary system. Really, there's only 2 that work in playgrounds. It's either playground grass or something that's called poured in place, which is kind of like a rubberized surface that gets poured in and it hardens and it's kind of pebbleized. From a use perspective, we've done that. We did it at one of the parks because the community there wanted it. That from a perspective of use, it's not the best use of surfacing, in my opinion, our professional opinion, because that one, we had it once at the youth center. We had to get rid of it because it hardens with the sun and it becomes an issue with holes and kids can pick at it. And then all of a sudden you're constantly repairing it and it's never the same. Once the unitary is broken and you patch it, it doesn't look good and the patches keep coming up. So the playground grass is something that, believe it or not, I was the first one to use it anywhere. there was a prototype that came out and we put it in the youth center, and that was in 2002. I've been here for a long time. So, and I think that's when I put it in, and it held up well. It's got a lot of good properties in terms of maintenance, in terms of repair. If something breaks, it's a quick tear out and stitch up, and you don't have to worry about it. There's been a lot of advances in those turfs. What we want to use is we use something that's not only antimicrobial, but is also anti-static, and it's specifically for playgrounds. So kids don't get shocked and things like that. We use the same, we're going to probably use the same manufacturer for both the playground and for also the field, which is Forever Lawn is the name of the company. It's what we've used for all of our different parks throughout the city that have artificial turf, and the majority of them have been converted to that. And our users are very happy and our parents are very happy. So that's what we're looking at, staying with. Technology, it continues to get better. As Randy stated, there's not infill. Now it's more fiber system. So they have technology that makes it cooler. And it's getting better every year. When I looked at turf, in 2002, it didn't have the properties that it has now. It's a much better product. I get I thought, well, they did it for me though. See? So these are some of the elements that we're also going to use within the design that are elements that we use at all of our parks. So if you notice the fencing, it's going to be a little different than what you have there now. We have gone to a kind of a park standard where it's the picket aluminum fencing with the limestone rocks to be the accent posts. It's a little bit more of a decorative look, but it seems to last really well. It's a little harder for things like vandalism and graffiti. It doesn't look good, coral rock, that kind of thing. It has been very effective in terms of maintenance at a lot of our parks that we've put them in. We're also, you can tell, some of the benches that we're going to use and the rocks and the walkways. That's kind of what we're looking at. We can go to the next slide. And these are some of the amenities that we're going to use in terms of our bike racks. We're probably going to use, I'm a fan of the one that says Container Park, but have it say Phillips Park. And that is a sample of what we're going to use for the surveillance system. You can see up top, there's our dogway station that we'll put on the outside. Obviously, we won't put it in the park. The light bollard, which I showed, there was a picture on the previous slide. So these are some of the examples of things that we put in all of our parks. The water fountain, the trash can, and the benches. If I can go to the next slide. So just a summary of where we are and where we've been. We held a community input meeting. It's been about 1.5 years now, maybe a little more than that. And we provided a conceptual design of what you saw. What you see today is all the detail, but we kind of showed you what we were going to do. It was well received. We had a few people that voiced some concerns about certain things, but we had input like we did now for a whole month. And when we tabulated, and looked at what consensus was, it was more or less what we had there. Whether there were some small changes. The back fitness area was going to be swings over there. They didn't want them over there. They wanted them with the big playground. Then we looked at a pavilion. They didn't like that there. There was some concern about, at the time, the community meeting about elimination of one tennis court in support of pickleball courts. But if any of you have been aware of what's going on in our community, pickleball has become a big community point where a lot of the community wants pickleball. So we're trying to we're trying to do the impossible, which is make everybody happy. And I know sometimes we can't do that, but we're going to try. And then what we did is that we were going to then start going towards all of the particulars. And as you could see, that playground was a big playground. It was something that we had to work through with the playground designers, because it's not something that is off the rack. We had to make sure that, we're putting that big structure, but then we wanted to put the swings there because the input we got in that community meeting was that the parents wanted the swings near the structure. They didn't want it all the way across the park. So we had to start looking at how do we add that. So we had to expend some space. and we had to look at some different things there. So then the design update presentation was held in February of 2023. We'll go next slide. So here's where we are with cost. The rough order of estimate has been, it's about $9.5 million. We have 4.6 that we had started budgeting over the last few years. So our city commission had put money in to make sure that we can get to that. Instead of throwing 9 million at once, they started putting in 1 million, 2 million with the last tranche, which is the last 4.7 coming to projected to be, if it gets approved with the budget, it'll be available October 1st. So we have already, since we had 4.6, that's how we were able to start with a designer and start working on that part of it and paying for that. And so we're looking at having full funding. So what happens now, can I go to the next slide? So what happens now is we get your feedback now. We go a month, we get everybody's feedback now. If we look like we reach consensus with nothing that's a major change, then we can move forward. And what we'll do is we'll move forward, and then the next processes are the procurement process, all of the permitting and plans, and then eventually you get to construction. And as you can see here, construction timeline could take up to 16 months. I'm hoping it takes 12. Like we said, we got to get it done by April 30th of 2026. Hopefully we can get it, we can fast track it with procurement and everything else, and we'll be able to get it done. We also are meeting, we meet with our advisory boards to show this design and get their feedback as well to make sure that we're on the right track. What's also important to note is not only our community meetings did we pay attention to, our city did a community-wide master plan where we looked at our programming and our recreation, and we did a program assessment. There was a statistical survey that was done through a consultant. So some of that shaped what we put together here. We try to, there was a need for bigger, I don't want to say bigger, more active, and more areas that can be used and enjoyed by the community. We did that at Salvador Park, which is, if any of you are aware of it, it's a very successful park, and it's we're very proud of that accomplishment. And we've put some smaller parks like Maggiore. If you've been there, it's a beautiful park. So we try to do something for the community and make sure that it's beautiful. But this park, it's so unique because of the amount of people that use it and because of the potential for it. And also, if you didn't notice, we talked about an indoor building and we talked about that budget. That capital budget, within that capital budget, I also presented an operating budget because I touched on it before, but this will be a staffed park. I personally can tell you, I think it should be a staff park now. Problem is I don't have any indoor space for staff. I have a security guard there. I used to have staff. It was very difficult to keep people on staff if you don't have anywhere to go and you don't have an office, you don't have anything else. So there's going to be an office space in here. We're going to have an operational. If you notice the indoor space, there's an activity space. There's going to be opportunity for programs. You could have small summer camp for the community where children, a lower cost option instead of going to the youth center, which is a lot more broad of a camp and has field trips and everything else. So we're looking at a lot of different programmatic elements, birthday parties, things like that for the community that we're looking at. But it'll be staffed. And I think staffing that park is really important because if there's eyes on it every day and the people that come in there know that every day somebody's walking around and it's not just one, you're going to have multiple people in and out of that park all day long, then I think it's going to operate much better and you're going to get full use of all these amenities that we're trying to put in there. Next slide. I think there shouldn't be any more. Good. So what we're going to do now is if anyone has any comments, we'll just raise your hand. Do we have a microphone? And we'll just wait for the microphone so we can get it on the recording. And then we will, all right. So you got a big line and a row in the back.
I'll go to you first.
Hi, my name is Kayla Riera Gomez. I have two children that are attending Coral Gables Preparatory Academy. They're currently at the upper campus on Zamora, which uses the Phillips Park field for PE. in case you haven't, had the opportunity to see what PE is like at that upper academy, it's unique. It's not just game playing, it's learning the fundamentals of individual sports. It's also a lot of health and nutrition, and that field is used extensively every period of the day. And we had the benefit of having our PE instructor here so he can better explain to you how that park is used. There are a lot of really interesting, wonderful things about the plan that you've put forth. And I have to commend the city and the commission for their efforts. I have a couple concerns that, since we have the opportunity to really look at this project holistically, that I think would be helpful to consider. The pickleball courts, and I know that that's become a very popular sport. I think that they would be better suited on the other side of the sports field for two reasons. One, a lot of our seniors are playing pickleball during the day. We've seen that in other times. Where they're currently located, I think that you're going to have issues in terms of that popping sound that so many articles have been written about being heard and being disruptive to the school, and to the classrooms that face the park. Additionally, there are plenty of parents who have kids that are old enough to play on the playground by themselves while mom and dad enjoy pickleball. And so if those were closer together, I think that would be much more helpful to allow the whole family to get out and about. I really love the idea of the fence around the sports field. I think that's huge. I noticed though that the softball field is gone from this plan. And it looks like the field and the renderings are only painted for soccer. I know that in Doral and some other areas, they have different colored lines to facilitate football and other sports. I'm not sure if that was part of the plan.
So the lines, that was just there for the design purposes, just to show you the scale. It would not be a permanent line just for that. We'd either do multiple lines or we'd do the quick rub off or the powder lines. And in terms of using that for the PE, as you said, I'm very familiar with it. I speak with a PE coach via email or on the phone all the time. So we know what it entails, and we will work with the school, and we will do everything we can to assist. The only thing that I also have to prevent a caveat though is that is going to be a field that we program for the community at large. So, there's going to be, there's already been interest. I might have a lacrosse program there. I'm going to have soccer spillover. I might have my flag football league there. So we have to make sure that we're serving the needs of the community as well as the school. We'll help with the school, but it is a city park first and foremost. So what we can do as extra, we can. We'll look at that. We'll see what the presiding interest is on the location of pickleball, and then we can look at that. If it's just a movement, we'll see. I don't know if you want to put it next to the playground so much, but we can look at it.
Okay. Additionally, I didn't see any seating around the sports field. If soccer or other programming that utilizes that field is brought in, aside from just a pickup game, then you're going to want a place for spectators to sit.
Well, I don't do that at the youth center. For soccer, like there's seating in the baseball area. There's no seating soccer because, I don't know how many soccer parents we have or how many flag football parents we have. I used to be one. A lot of people now bring their own chairs, their little fold-ups. So we really don't have bleacher seating or anything like that. We don't have the space for that.
But I believe at the youth center, they have told parents that they can't sit on the field during practices. That's just
during practices, but not during
Right.
games. And for practices, there's seating outside of the field. You have seating around the playground. You have seating. You have benches all throughout the walkways. So you have seating for practices. For games, they get on the field and they're able to sit where they're supposed to.
Okay, wonderful. And then what is your timeline and the manner in which this construction would happen? Are you going to close that entire park from start to finish, or are you going to do it in phases? I know in other areas you kind of phase projects so that the community doesn't lose an entire park.
It's very difficult
For
to
16.
phase a project that small. You're looking at a 3-acre spot. And for us, that's big, but in the scope of what a real project is, that's not a very big project. And if you phase it, you'd probably increase the cost by quite a bit. Our capital team will tell you that. We tried to do it in other places. It doesn't work. It's way too expensive. So my thought would be most likely that the construction would go start to finish for the whole thing in order to get it done quickly and to not spend any more money than the 9.5 million we're already asking for.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Good evening, Luciana Gonzalez. My child also goes to Coral Gables Prep. I am on the PTSA board for a very long time. My daughter will be there for the next 2 years, so we'll likely be experiencing the growth pains of the construction project. So that's one of my main concerns as far as construction goes. Where will the kids go? And I know that earlier you mentioned that the school agreement has expired. I'm not quite sure if that's the case. I'd love to visit that separately with you and your staff. My understanding is that it has been renewed every year or every 2 years. So we need to look at that very carefully because and my understanding is that there's a blanket agreement between parks and the school board. So I think that City of Coral Gables has done a tremendous job when it comes to parks planning. All the new parks in the city look beautiful. I have no doubt that this will always also be a very nice project. But I do think that planning ahead and maybe coordinating between the school board and the City of Coral Gables, especially for construction purposes, is very important. If you take a look around, there's a vacant lot right across the street from the school, 44 Zamora. It's been vacant for a very long time. I know that there's a project that's been planned there for a long time, 91 units. I don't think it's going to happen. It's not going to happen in the next 2 years, given the the way that the real estate market is today. I highly encourage the City of Coral Gables to work with that developer who is very well known to all the city leadership and talk to him and maybe coordinate something with that on a temporary use basis to be able to, so that the school can use that since the students and the community in general is going to be impacted. So I think that if we can plan ahead and get that together, I think that would be a fantastic idea to utilize that vacant land and do something with it in the meantime. And the other thing that I was going to mention is the fitness area that's kind of closest to the school. Right next to the fitness area to the south is where the fifth graders usually have their PE time. The fifth graders do not come into Phillips Park to have their PE, or I stand corrected if that's not correct. But that's going to attract people closer to the school. So I think you really need to consider some sort of fencing or, something that would separate it from view to prevent, add more privacy to the students. These are little kids. These are elementary school kids, and we want to protect them. I know that not too long ago, there was an incident of an individual hiding in one of those that blocked off playgrounds. So I'm concerned about that. So please take that into consideration.
Yep.
Thank you very much.
There's one more and then we'll come.
Hi, my name is April Jones. I'm a Coral Gables resident and on the Coral Gables Preparatory Academy PTSA board. And I first just had a question of clarification because it's been mentioned several times that the sports field will have this 10-foot fence all around it. But on the drawings, it indicates that the fencing is only on the north side of the sports field. So I just wanted to clarify.
The 10-foot will be on the north side to protect the playground. Then it will have your normal fencing. I think it's a 5-foot all the way across.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then I echo a lot of what Kayla and Luciana have said as well. But I also wanted to add, currently where the school is located, there is, let's just call it an easement space between the edge of the building and where the fence is for the park. I just wondered, is that easement going to remain in this current plan?
We designed it that way. An interesting note though, is when we looked at it, it's city land. So we could take it all, but we're not, obviously we're not. We're going to keep it the way it is, the way it's set up. We're not sure what happened with construction because there's even an overhead that's on that easement on the eastern side. So, but we're going to leave that there. And what we're looking at is we're not gonna touch the school's fencing. So we're gonna, for the other commentary on double, probably have a double fencing there. So we'll look at, but the last thing I did want to touch on though is we'll work with the school board on looking at what we can do with construction and seeing what we can offer, but we do need assistance from the school board for that. It's a city park. We need to make sure the community has somewhere to go, obviously, but for the school, we need to have the school board help us and assist us in finding a space for their students. If we can't have that field that we usually give them at no cost. So, we'll help in any way we can, but we do need their support and they need to be active and looking for solutions as well, not just the city. That's all.
Sure, no,
Yeah.
I agree. And this is, I mean, the plan in general, this is a much needed upgrade to that park. A lot of our students use that park because this is the only neighborhood school in Coral Gables. So the fact that this park is right in our neighborhood, I mean, this is going to be great when it's done, but we would appreciate consideration of the things mentioned with the pickleball court and the sound for that. And then glad to hear about the easement. And then, as they said, just the scheduling, I understand that this is a project that has to happen, but to the extent that scheduling can be discussed in advance to where if things are needed, they can be planned for versus finding out before construction is starting. You have to figure something out. Thank
You're
you.
right. We had this right here.
Coming here, wait.
Good evening. My name is Gail Jackson. I've been a Coral Gables resident for 30 years. Avid pickleball player, also an aunt and parent that was in Coral Gables High, Ponce de Leon, once upon a time. And unfortunately, the facilities of the Miami-Dade public schools are pretty inadequate when it comes to sports. So it's welcome to have that park. My son was on swimming. We had to go somewhere else for swimming. So we had to use a public park. I have a question. Parking on Galliano is an issue. I live at Ponce Towers. I can look and see who's playing pickleball from my balcony. I hear noises all the time and it's no issue. It's no issue for me whatsoever, from people having joy at the park. But what I see on Galliano are people that work in Coral Gables that get the free parking on Galliano. And that's a concern for the residents in the area. I have parking within my building. So they go down and take the free trolley to get to their destination. Also, what are the hours going to be? And also, are there going to be lights? Thank you.
So we currently have lights there now. The hours will be the hours that we have there now. I don't know how long ago was it? A few years ago, we looked at it because there was a lot of activity that was going on late at night. So we instituted where we would lock it up every night. I think we lock it up at 9 o'clock, and we open it as soon as we can get there. We try to get there at daylight hours because we know some people walk early, but sometimes our guys, the truck breaks down or whatever. They get there as soon as they can, they open it. And sometimes, somebody forgets, but we try to open it as soon as we can, and we close everything down at 9. Was it 10? All right, so it was 10 o'clock. Maybe we switched it at some point. I don't know. I could have sworn it was 9. Maybe I was just trying to make it sound better. I don't know. I thought it was 9. All right, well, we'll talk about it. When you have staff there, you can do things like that. We can look at it. We can look at the use and we can look at what the need is of the community. We can go earlier, we can go later. I know you don't want to go later. I'm just saying we could. So we can, but we'll be able to lock it. And that's the whole point. Staffing it, there's a lot more control at that park. And we won't have anybody in there overnight on midnights, and which we don't have now.
Answer all your questions.
Thank you. Hi, I don't know, should I turn this way or this way? Anyway, hi, I'm Barbara Bloom and I'm a resident of Coral Gables, directly across from the park. I live at Village Park, which is 1650 Galliano. I love sitting on the balcony and watching the tennis players. I like to see the school kids active. I love the activity of the park. We are very excited that they're going to be doing these updates. I think it's wonderful. One of the nicest things is feeling like you're in a community. I do have several issues. Some of them you've already answered that satisfied me, like that there shouldn't be bikes on the walk path. It's an accident waiting to happen. You mentioned you mentioned about the popping sound. I am not a pickleball fan. I obviously am outnumbered in the community and all over the place. And nationally, one of the biggest problems is people who live directly across from all these parks that have pickleball. It's extremely loud. It's a lot faster and a lot more frequent, the decibels and so on, than tennis. But obviously it is what it is, that it's coming and I can't prevent that. I do have a couple suggestions regarding that. It is disruptive to the school, for the students, for the noise. It's awful for us to hear, but you got to figure out what to do about that. I was very concerned and disappointed that a tennis court was removed. That's something that's been around since the 13th century in France. And there are plenty of times that people cannot get onto the tennis courts. I know one of the concerns you mentioned, which is real, is that there are instructors who are getting paid using public courts for their own private income. If there's going to be somebody staffed in the park, they can prevent that. They can make it where it's certain hours. To take away the two free tennis courts that are in North Gables and that are free, there are people always waiting to use the tennis courts. I understand people want to do pickleball also, but to remove a tennis court to add two pickleball courts does not make sense to me. I don't know architecturally, structurally, what is room in the park. One of my suggestions would be to keep the two tennis courts because they're very valued and very well used, and to try to see if there's room for one pickleball court. To take away a tennis court to put in two pickleball courts makes no sense to me. I would also, I mean, if they weren't used, that would be something. But also suggest that you mentioned, I think at the youth center, there's something that's being done with the basketball courts where you can do a couple times a week, where you can do a pickleball court. The school mentioned the fitness court. I actually think that the fitness court is, I shouldn't use the word a waste, but where it is and what is being done there is an expense and a location that I don't think it should be. If there's a way where if you keep the basketball court, I don't know size wise, but if there's a way to be able to put a pickleball court there or to move it over, as was suggested, towards the north side near the kids where parents can enjoy the pickleball court, also have it be closer to Douglas and closer to Publix rather than more of the community, that might satisfy a little bit of the noise. I don't know. Regarding the splash, whatever you want to call it, splash pad, I think it's very exciting. However, we're having enough trouble with parking as it is. I know you had mentioned, a couple of people mentioned, that if that attracts a lot of people from all over the place, we're already having a problem on Galliano with not having enough parking. And you had mentioned about the parking also. So those are some things to consider. I think in general, it's a fabulous plan. I'm very excited about all of it. But removing a tennis court to add two pickleball just doesn't make sense. I think we're trying to put too many things into the area.
Well, we're trying to make everybody happy, as I said. And, tennis, you look at, there's different ways to look at it. There's a viewpoint that there's not enough pickleball courts versus tennis courts in the city. I know there's not any that are free over there, tennis, but there's really nothing, that we have dedicated for pickleball right now. We only have two and they're not free. The ones that we do with youth center, it's only once, twice a week, and it's not necessarily something that's dedicated only for pickleball. So we're trying to make, but we're going to take everybody's input. And if everybody doesn't want that, then we'll look at that. That's fine. We'll look at all the input.
Hi, I'm Kenneth Bloom, and I'm a spouse of the previous speaker. I watch the basketball players, the boys that play basketball. Basketball is essentially an indoor game, especially in South Florida during the summer, during the daylight hours. I have never seen a full court game on the basketball court. I've been living here, living 8 years across the street, never seen a full court game. You don't need a full court nobody plays full court in South Florida unless you're indoors. All the leagues are now basically indoors. So it's a pickup game, which is fine. It's use of the facility, but there's usually have 8 to 10 people. Maybe it's 3-on-3, maybe 4-on-4. It's all pickup. People wait to play. So you don't need to replace the basketball court, a tennis court with a full court basketball court. I'd leave the tennis courts alone. They're used constantly. And they're even used in the heat of the day. People are out there hitting, either practicing or hitting. You should probably take the existing basketball court if you're going to do anything with pickleball and put one pickleball there. Unless the good suggestion was to move it to the north side if you wanted to. But you don't need a full court basketball court. Now, I don't know, it's going to make the design not so pretty, but people, the boys that are using, or the men, are not playing full court. There are some people that do some practice, but they're essentially waiting for the pickup game.
Thank you. Over on that side.
Hey, apologize if you already mentioned this, maybe I missed it. Did you talk about the material for the walkway? I'm curious if it's soft enough to allow for jogging or if it's very cement and.
I think it's, we didn't specify, on it. Is it concrete? Yeah, it was concrete. We're going from asphalt to concrete, so it's not going to that soft material. We looked at that. It's another big expense, different than the concrete. So we were looking at concrete. That's what we have right now. No other way to put it.
One other thing I was wondering about, the fitness court. If we were to eliminate the fitness court, a lot of parks I just know, like in Coconut Grove and so on, along the path when you're walking or you're running, there would be the things that are all in that one spot. There would be various things along the way that you could do instead, and you wouldn't have to take up that spot.
Yes, and we would have gone that way if it's not really possible with the spacing that we have here, because when you're fit in the field, and also if you recall, on the east side, you have that mounding up with all those trees and it slows it down. There's not a lot of space. You'd have to go into the field. So you'd reduce the amount of field space, which we don't want to do. Really, that corner was a big enough area that we thought, what a waste of having space here. So we're trying to do something that we can put in there. And we looked at, we did all kinds of things. We had a pavilion there for another birthday. Nobody liked the pavilion. So we've gone back and forth. And we thought a fitness station there, if people wanted to go do their calisthenics. Look, Ingram Park is very small. We have one that's got like just 3 or 4 machines in a circle, and it's always used. So we've seen it used. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what the community wants and whether we do it or not.
Okay, sorry about that. So like I said, my name is Henry. I'm 17 years old, and I was just talking with my 2-month-old about how there should be more public art in the city of Coral Gables, and I think this new park is a great opportunity for sculptures, murals, all our other that kind of stuff to add some more humanity to this new development, and also maybe something like every now and then, maybe once a month, there could be like a marketplace or something that is established there, just to promote the local economy. So I just wanted to let you know and see what you thought about that.
No, I think it's a good idea. I think one of the things we were looking at with that fitness center is there's a mural concept. I don't know if we can fit it in there. You can do a mural on it. There's also, it's not public art statues and stuff, but we are going to have the opportunity for art programming, which I'll be excited there. We'll have a classroom, we can do art. But yeah, there's, the entrance features. There's something we can look at with public art statues there, and some of the stuff that we put together. Yeah, we'll look at it. I think it's a good idea.
So much.
Testing.
Just want to ask a question about the natural versus synthetic for the field. You know, the controversy in other municipalities like Aventura, where not only is the chemical component for the environment an issue, it's the higher propensity for foot, ankle, hip, and knee injuries, whether it's old version or new version of synthetic turf. It's a long-standing issue, obviously, in the NFL, and they've really been trying to address reducing injuries. And I just think, you know, a more natural environment, if there was a way to improve drainage on a natural field versus, you know, the additional heat absorption that will also occur with a synthetic field, I hope the city takes a better look at that particular issue.
So we've looked at it in depth. We've been working on artificial turf and whether to put it in. We even looked at it for the youth center. We decided not to do it there, but we've looked at a lot of things that go with it. I will tell you, if you look at studies specific for the NFL, the difference with, you know, casual users, even no matter how athletic, they aren't going to be like the NFL. So there are studies that say those injuries that are high level are because of the torque, the wear and tear, and the pressure that the joints get at that level. It's not at a casual level, but there is no question that grass would be something that you would look at. Problem is, you're looking at a 70-yard field, and it is really the only other field space we have in the entire city. So it gets used nonstop, not by the school, also by casual users, by our auxiliary users in leagues, or where we don't have enough space at the youth center. And if you have natural, we're not going to be able to keep it up. Be out there right now. I have a great grass team. If you come to Granada Golf Course, people rave about what they can do there. We can't keep that field up. And we've run into this with natural grass. Salvador Park, if you've been there, you see where the zip crews and all that used to be natural grass. The problem is we couldn't keep grass on there because of the amount of use and the feet. So when we went to the surface, you're able to get use, and you don't want to put that field out of operation. And the problem is, you know, go to any natural grass field right now in the county because of soccer and show me one that's in good shape. It's very difficult. That's why a lot of people have gone to artificial turf, even in spite of the things that you talk about. There's still, I can tell you, even Aventura, they'll tell me, the recreation professionals will tell me that, you know, the turf is preferable because they couldn't have practices in certain areas of the field because it was just mud. And that's another danger when you have worn down grass. So I'm with you. I know we've looked at all that and we've strongly considered it. If we had the ability to have a big enough field space where we can cycle on and off like we're able to do at the youth center, we don't have that here. It's only 70 yards. It's not a big field.
So first off, I want to congratulate you and Carolina and your team and the architectural firm, because I know when this first was an idea, and to get to this point where the community now is completely engaged, there's a conceptual plan, there's funding in place, or more funding to come. So congratulations on a great job. With regards to the field, it's not a regulation size field for adults. 70 basically is youth aged, which reminded me that I looked it up. February 22nd, 1980, I was coaching a soccer game there. And that's 44 years ago. Actually, I think I was coaching Kayla's husband. Probably, I think I was actually. And the park and the field basically is the same it was 44 years ago. And when you look at the field, a lot of times our soccer program, we were hesitant to have the kids go there because the divots, it sort of sometimes looks like the lunar surface. And that in itself creates a hazard. I'm all for the natural grass, but like you said, it's such a small space and it's so much used that you sort of the pendulum swings on the other side. I also just, you know, I think we're all aware that that part of Coral Gables over the years has been sort of neglected. We have such a growing, booming population, folks that live there for, some of them for their entire lives. And this is a great step, I think, in the right direction to bring it, basically bring the best out of the area. And so many families are moving into the area for kids and seniors. I think it's an ideal plan, ideal project. Just a little bit of history, because I love history, especially about Coral Gables, is in 1926, the city of Coral Gables built a football stadium there. And on that site, and that's where the University of Miami played the University of Havana, Thanksgiving Day, 1926. So that area, and with a Coliseum, which was an auditorium, but then a skating rink, bowling, a racquetball, George Merrick saw that area as a true community site where you have something for everyone. And I think it's about time that the city's finally paying homage to the spirit and the vision of George Merrick, but also to give not only the area, the folks that live in the area, but the entire city a gift. And I think it's a beautiful gift. And congratulations again.
Yep, as anyone that knows us, have been talking about this park for quite a while. I've wanted to improve this for quite a while because, I mean, it's beat up, and I think we could make something great here, like we've done at other places where people always tell us, "Oh, what you've done here is wonderful." We're going to be able to do that here, and even better. And we're going to look at all the input and see where we are and see where the community stands. And you know what we pride ourselves on in our department. And if any of you've been active in any of our other park sites, we listen. And if it's a one person that has that opinion, nobody else does, I will warn you, then it's a different story. But if it seems to be a consensus that, hey, we need to do something here, we're going to look at it. Do we have anyone on Zoom?
Sorry, I just had a quick question. I remember when you redid the youth center playgrounds, there were some delays that were out of the city's control in terms of getting that there. Is kind of the plan, having been through that before, are you trying to stage it or make sure that you have the items accessible? I mean,
Interesting that you mentioned that. One of the things that we've gone to is we have found playground manufacturers that work better than others. And we have our good playgrounds, the ones that are solid. If you've been to JC Park, if you've been to Salvador, that's the company that we've been using. When we tried to go with the free enterprise system of seeing what's out there, there's a couple of parks that have different manufacturers. Phillips Park is one of them right now that, and I'm not going to name names because I don't want to denigrate on tape any playground companies, but we found that these companies are quicker with their service. We have parts in inventory because it's the same company. So if a swing belt goes down, we have the swing belt because we have the swing belt for the other one. But with the youth center, that was the case of going with a low bidder, and that turned out to be a company that was not domestic. And that became the issue. And we're not going to make that mistake again. So what we have in there, that's the manufacturer. We've talked with them, and that's going to be the one that gets competitively bid out.
Okay, so I'm going to do the Zoom question. Where exactly are the swings, and will there be baby and adult swings?
The swings are, if we can go to the presentation, and we'll go to the playground slide. If you can find that for me, I know I'm putting our IT team on urgent there. I'll show you. It's within the big structure. So that whole area, it has a tower with slides, and it's got a really cool, we didn't even go into it, a really cool corkscrew tower. Slide. And then, okay, so if you look at, we have is this a laser? Okay. Is this a laser? There we go. Okay, so if we go to the slide before that, thank you so much. Yeah. So here is the big playground, and then here are the slides. So here is the big structure right here. Here's the toddler we're talking about, which we mentioned the youth center. Youth center has something similar for the small ones, which is here, an activity panel and a thing. And then we put the slides over on this, I mean, the swings over on this side. But I did want to mention, look at this little corkscrew slide. I really like that. It was one of my favorite features. So if we can go to the next slide. So here is the multi-person family type. It's not a tire swing, but it's the same kind of slide. It's kind of a family type slide. And then you'll have a toddler swing and 2 belt swings, correct? Yes. Okay.
Okay, so the next question from the same Zoomer. And this person agrees with Barbara Bloom, the splash pad is not necessary and will bring too much traffic to the area where we already don't have enough parking.
Okay, but you said the parking. I don't think you said it wasn't necessary, right? Okay. Well, we're having our own issues with everybody wanting things to the youth center. If anybody's been watching a commission meeting here and there.
It is going to. I think it's a wonderful idea. What's hot as heck in Miami. I just think that it is going to attract tons of people and we already have a parking issue.
I mean, I'm not saying that it's not going to attract anyone. But it isn't a gigantic scope splash pad. We're not talking, I mean, it's not even like the Pinecrest one, which has got the big, there's not umbrellas. It's not a crazy type of pad. And from what we've seen, the activity level is pretty high already. And you got the neighborhood. Yeah, I think when it's new, no question, you're going to have some people. It'll start to dissipate, and you'll get to a level. It happens with all of our parks, and we have some that were, some smaller parks and smaller neighborhoods. People went there when it was brand new, and then it really went down to just the people that live in the area. This is not going to be that park because it's never been that park. So you're always going to have the activity. But I do think you are going to have, with the staffing there, a little bit more of curb control, and you're going to be able to have, making sure the people are there that are using it. You're not going to have a lot of stuff, people out there looking for mischief and things like that. I think having some control there. And I think once we get closer to the design, we have to start looking, we'll work with our parking department to see what kind of signage gets put up. That's either has to be for residents or park users, not business, or you'll get ticketed, something like that. We can look at that as well. And that's what we usually do whenever we're doing a new park project. We start looking at what we can do, because it's very interesting. We don't have a lot of issues with park design. It's an occasional thing here or there, but it's always the stuff that surrounds the park. It's the parking, the traffic, it's other things, so we know that we have to involve all the other departments in that. Any other Zoom?
In the meantime, the park is not being properly maintained. Will you continue to put money into it while we wait for construction?
Well, we do our landscape maintenance, and in terms of anything that's broken, or that's a safety issue, we continue to repair. Our staff was just out there today. We had a whole crew out there working on some of the shades and things like that. So we'll continue to handle any safety issues. But in terms of things that are a little older, a little more aged, I'm not gonna replace benches unless they're broken. If there's things that are broken and present a safety issue, we're definitely gonna do it. But I'm not gonna replace the playground right now. We'll repair it if it needs to be repaired. But we know we're coming with a big project really soon. So we have to be fiscally responsible as well, but we have to make sure it's safe, and we have to make sure it's not a danger. Okay.
We want to make sure the Zoomers hear you too.
This is regarding flooding. I think it's great. I heard you say that you're going to do something with the park itself to help with drainage. You probably are already aware that North Gables has a terrible flood problem. Part of the problem with the flooding at the park is that one of the major flood problems, because I've been working with the gentleman who's been wonderful in trying to improve the flooding issue in North Gables, is that from Ponce going down Menendez to the park and Galliano, even if 2 blocks away won't flood, is still flooding. And there is a slight incline, and it goes down towards the park. So once Galliano starts filling up with all the water, that's when you see the school parking lot and you see the park filling up with water. So hopefully you all can encourage and see what we can do. They did part of the improvement. They have not finished it. And hopefully you can. Wait a second.
No, but we're,
No, you
we're
look-
having a job, it's a project starting soon in that area. We're having a drainage project starting soon in the next couple of weeks. At that corner in Galeano by the school, going west, a drainage, a separate project from this. And this is gonna start like in 2-3 weeks probably. The construction, after school is over, we're gonna start with the construction. Yes. Yeah, but there's a project on the works for a long time for that. Sure.
Okay, we have another question from Zoom. Could we consider installing a calisthenics park instead of the fitness center, similar to the David T. Kennedy Park in Coconut Grove?
So, we'll have to look at that. When we say our fitness center, a lot of the equipment is static equipment, which is similar to the David Kennedy stuff. And it's a combination of movement machines and also calisthenics. So it's not all movement machines. So I think we're trying to have a variety, and do that as well. All right. Oh, one more.
With regard to the fitness area that's been talked about a couple times now, another option that might make a lot of sense is to put it behind that teacher's parking lot there. Just flip flop it. And then I know that you said that you want to try to utilize that corner so you don't have a dead space, but maybe that would be maybe like a meditation garden or a quiet space, because there are users who just want to go to the park to sit and enjoy nature.
Yeah. No, I get it. My only concern is I don't want to create like those kind of loitering spaces so close to the school. And the fitness is active. You're in there, you're doing your stuff. There's not chairs, there's not. So that's what we were looking for, just an activity spot. I mean, look, depending on what everybody wants, we don't even have to put it in there. It's less money for us, it's less trouble for us, but we're trying to add a component because we got a lot of stuff for kids in there.
Right.
The adults, other than some pickleball, which we might not even have, and some tennis, then what else, all the adults can do is walk and watch their children. So we were thinking of maybe doing a little fitness thing right there and, help out.
And I very much appreciate the fitness concept, in part because there's really not much in the city for our middle schoolers. And, we all know how important it is to keep middle schoolers and high schoolers busy.
Yep. Well, everyone, thank you so much for coming.
Fred, we have a couple more, the way the chat's designed. What is going to be the flooring material in the playground? My daughter goes to the park daily and is allergic to mulch. That's one question.
So as we stated in the presentation, it's going to be something called playground grass, antimicrobial, anti-static. It is an artificial turf product. You can see it at the youth center. You could see it at quite a few of our parks, like JC and other places that we have it in. Betsy Adams, there's a bunch of others.
Another question was, are some areas planned for runners? Thanks.
Well, you have the trail all the way around. You have the walkway all the way around. There's not much more in a 3-acre park you can do for runners. But what we did is we tried to set that pathway up as much to the perimeter as we could, with the exception of the playgrounds, and you have that big tree there, which we can't move. So that's why we didn't go around that. That's why we kept the courts where they are, because we didn't want to touch that tree. So that's what we have.
Next question. I'm Nicole Cost. I am a Coral Gables Preparatory Academy parent, and my concern being where the 5th through 8th grade students have PE during the 12 to 16th month renovation. I understand that you'll work with the school board. I truly hope all stakes, the city, parks, rec, school board, and school work to come to a viable plan during the 12 to 16 months of renovation. CGPA is a Coral Gables neighborhood school, and we really need to work together to have a place for our PE for the students. Lastly, I agree with some of the pickleball noise concerns, especially with students concentrating during the school day. And as a resident, Ms. Bloom stated, sorry.
I agree. I would love everyone to get together and come up with a solution. But we're going to need some help on that one. So we are welcome to help and provide. From a city's perspective, we do provide the field right now. So we're always in support of helping the school.
Hi, good evening. Ailette Rodriguez Diaz, and I'm here on behalf of Miami-Dade County Public Schools. So I will be your point of contact. And thank you so much for your partnership. This does look like a beautification project, and we're sure that our students at Coral Gables Prep will be able to enjoy them. However, as soon as we can sit at the table, I'd love to involve our facilities and design and everybody in the school board that should have a say with regards to relocation of our students or the school operations side. We have great support from our parents and our PTA. So we want to make sure that I definitely guide you to the right person so that we can be involved as of right now. So thank you so much for the invitation for being here tonight.
Absolutely. I think we're gonna have to work on this one and figure it out, but we're willing to help.
Just because I experienced it when I was in elementary school, the school I went to for a few years didn't have a field. That was Dearborn. It's where Bill Ussery Mercedes-Benz is. And our PE for certain grades, they'd put us on a school bus, we'd go to Douglas Park. In Douglas Park, we'd have flag football with our PE coach or softball, whatever you call it. So that's how Dearborn dealt with it back in the day. It was basically transporting the kids to a closer area and then I'm just suggesting that as a possible solution during the construction
So
phase.
there's always, where there's a will, there's a way. Another example I'll give you, it's not in the same area, but it was one of the things that I dealt with when I first got to the city in the mid-90s. The youth center was closed because we had to redo it and it was closed for several years. We were in the Biltmore. I was running an after school in an abandoned restaurant that used to be the old country club section of the Biltmore. My kids would sit in booths. We figured it out. So we'll figure it out and we'll work on it and help out and get something done. Thank you all, everybody. Appreciate it. And we didn't get you out too late.